Good morning. I'm here early to talk to you about the absolute need for residents to be tolerant living in subsidized housing. That is probably the most difficult requirement for some residents. I mean, if you don't like to mix races and live next door to people of color, go up and down the elevator, if you don't like to associate with the chronically mentally ill, if you don't like to go outside and mix and mingle with the homeless who have a giant encampment a half a block away in the park, the university park, no less. I'm sure some university people would just like to banish all these homeless away from the park where they took up residence. The more big $130 million buildings right next door to them were raised, the more homeless flocked in that shaded park. And it is the clientele early in the morning when I go to get my coffee. In fact, nearly every Circle K coffee urn was empty. I couldn't get my Colombian because of the homeless coming in there early to get their coffee. So, and as I was walking through, a resident from the Westward Ho was out there with a broom and a dustpan because some of the homeless had scattered food around where the smokers from the Westward Ho go out to sit and smoke. That still smoke, that haven't been able to give it up or don't want to. But I would say that we're fortunate here, and I'm fortunate to live here because I have, with pro-life as my cause, I had to absolutely commit to reform, or I wouldn't be anywhere. I try to get people to reform so that we can change the law. Enough people that will see abortion as a solution we don't want to encourage by legalizing it. We don't want to convey to people that this is okay, because from what I understand from my communications with people on the other side, we are going to be shocked, absolutely shocked, when we get over there and find out how many of the aborted children survive death and are right there for us to talk to them, and they're there to present their case. So, to me, it's very foolish to start a policy that the victims aren't going to like, and they're going to end up having the privilege of confronting us as all the victims of murder, genocide, will have the opportunity to do. If they feel like their deaths were not fair, they weren't generous, they weren't kind, they were actually brutal and without forethought, in their opinion, naturally, the victim isn't going to like to be killed. That is the long and the short of it. And I know that. But a lot of people seem to have wishful thinking about that. I suppose they're thinking, oh, when it comes time to die, I will just, there'll just be oblivion They prefer oblivion to having to pay for whatever they've done. But when it comes right down to it, do you think they're going to turn down life after death if they can get it? For oblivion? Not a chance. The urge of any human being, I don't care where they are, is to survive somehow. So if there is eternal life, they're going to take it. So we just as well accept the fact that there are certain rules for eternal life that we had better start keeping in this world. Just because we don't know for sure, absolutely for sure, take a chance. Shouldn't be taking any chance on something that we're going to have to pay dearly for. So, anyway, that is the name of the game in subsidized housing, is reform, so that you can tolerate. And of course, I knew that I wouldn't be popular. I probably wouldn't be a successful playwright because I wasn't willing to, as we all know, pro-life is a very unpopular cause. And if you commit yourself to it, you're writing. See, I have a second memoir ready to go. My first memoir has been published 2 or 3 years, and it's coming along very slowly in the preparation to sell to the public. I've sold as many as I could in here, but pretty soon it's going to be up on Amazon, and it's going to cost quite a bit of money, but I had it published up in Utah, in the town where I grew up and where a lot of what I talk about happened. So I thought that that was the best plan for that memoir. Now my second memoir is done, and I'm going to have my son help me, as I believe the plan that I have favor now is have my son help me to publish it on Amazon, which seems to be a popular outlet. And believe me, this memoir is very revealing. It's a revealing memoir, as you might expect, of how to stay married and when you're bored, or when you are very mad at your husband, or how not to lie and cheat. Because I committed myself to that task. No matter, I told my husband, I will not step out on you. I will not lie to you. I will ask you for divorce if I really feel like that I can't keep from going or wanting to go with somebody else. So this is a very valuable memoir because it's about honesty in marriage, and that is a very hard place to be honest. And one reason why I decided to commit myself to honesty in marriage was because I grew up in a marriage where both parents were very dishonest and told many lies. We were raised on lies. And they had terrible tempers. So we couldn't say anything to them because they would get very, very mad. Oh, my dad. Oh, see, my dad. And this is where, now I live in a complex where there are a number of gay people. And one reason I'm a Democrat is because I believe that party handles the gay, the fact of being gay better than the Republicans, who seem to be more prejudiced. They think it's all a choice. They're going to hell, and it's not that simple. It is not that simple. Because I grew up watching this. My dad, my buddies, he had parties every weekend. He must have gone with, I don't know, 100. I studied this kind of man, for heaven's sake. I studied him and studied him. I knew his faults. I knew his failings. And I knew his strengths. I knew how tough he was. He was a tough cowboy. So I thought, well, I'm a good person to talk on this subject, because to me, gays very often don't get to the crimes that are involved in children being molested, as I was on that ranch by hired men that my dad didn't pay any attention to, didn't want to pay close enough attention to perceive that something terrible had happened to his little daughter. So I had that against Dad. So this memoir, my first memoir, deals with Dad till I'm 20. My second memoir deals with marriage to a guy who was very, very mean when he got drunk. And he actually tried to murder me once, which his relatives will never believe, or if it was my fault. It was not my fault. He was just goddamn mean. So I certainly didn't hurt him like he was capable of hurting me, because he was a lot stronger than I was. He was a man. And so I had to decide whether I was going to go on with the marriage after I nearly got murdered because of the kids. We had one child on the way when that happened. And then I had one more with him, so that the other one wouldn't be alone. So there'd be two. Because I knew I was going to have to leave that guy eventually, because his meanness when he was drinking just ruined my feelings. But I still didn't lie to him, and I still didn't cheat on him. And he had a very hot temper, so he was very tough to deal with. And I had to keep from going crazy. I had to demand certain activities that would keep me in the marriage without doing absolutely the wrong thing and lying about it. So this is a very valuable memoir. So when people reform, when they try to do the right thing, now this is the kind of behavior that the hereafter is looking for. People who realize that when you get to hereafter, that is where you're going to have to reform. If you put it off here, if you haven't done it, that is where you're up against it. You will have to reform, or the consequences will be even worse than they are here. Because I believe that here is where we get the children are born. And now we've taken advantage of that fact, legalized abortion, which we never should have done, but it's done, and we have to restrict it again for all the right reasons. And we have to recognize it as wrong in so many ways that we should not tolerate it. So, anyway, I have to say that reform, you have to get used to that word and look at yourself. Do I need reforming? Well, for heaven's sakes, take every chance you have to get help to reform. Because that is the hardest thing you could do, the most difficult. And if you don't do it, you'll just be indulging yourself, rolling around, getting away with this, getting away with that, instead of getting some help to straighten up. So, having been turned into a reformer when I was 5 years old, that's when I became the victim of a very bad man I was forced to go into the reforming business right then and there, to reform the people who I held responsible for that, mainly my parents. So that is one thing I'm good at, is reforming people, seeing what they have to do, and sticking to the program myself all my life. And I think that is the most important thing that people could do, is reform.